But first, this judges no longer have to use a defendant's chosen gender after a Supreme Court ruling that says sex is based on biology. The ruling, of course, states non-binary identities don't have legal status and courts can reject preferred pronouns. By the way, spoiler alert, non-binary is just an invented thing that somebody came up with. It doesn't have any, you won't find a biologist that can put their name to that. So courts can reject preferred pronouns. It also means that suspects can use single-sex services for the opposite sex. Joining me, Helen Joyce, Director of Advocacy at Sex Matters, author of Trans, Gender Identity and the New Battle for Women's Rights. Good afternoon to you, Helen.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Do you know, I even feel, you know, you and I have talked about this many times, I even feel a bit embarrassed just reading all of that out because it's all so bonkers. And if somebody was sitting there in 1987 or something listening to this, they go, what is that man talking about? Gender and pronouns and non-binary and all this kind of stuff. I mean, I've got a feeling that a courtroom didn't have to use anyone's pronouns if they didn't fancy it, but for some reason, everybody joined in with this thing for a while.
Yeah, so this particular one is about a publication called the Equal Treatment Bench Book, which is by judges for judges. And it started with the good idea of helping judges to run their courtrooms fairly, thereby having fewer challenges. You know, for example, thinking about, you know, if you have a deaf or a blind witness, or if somebody needs a translator, or if you have a disabled person who may find it hard to get into the stand, that sort of thing. But it got captured by gender ideology. And I think several years ago now, it said that you would never be able to ask somebody's actual sex. You had to accept everybody as the sex they said they were, that you had to use whatever pronouns they said for themselves, that you would expect witnesses to do the same. And, you know, as rapidly as just that, it came to be that we had rape cases where women were told that they were expected to use she, her pronouns for a man they knew had raped them, and that they would have to listen to the whole court doing the same thing. I mean, obviously re-victimising the woman. And it's taken a long time to get this back out. We've been campaigning to get it back out, and it now seems the Supreme Court judgment has given that push to the court system. Yeah,
and in one notable case, of course, a defendant who changed their pronouns halfway through a case. So you ended up with this almost, it would be farcical if it wasn't such a serious story. That suddenly, and I noted newspapers and media organisations suddenly talking about her and she, and I'm thinking, no, it's a male rapist we're talking about here. And everybody just kind of went along with it. And that's partly what was wrong here.
And that's the second reason why this is so important. When we've talked to media organisations that insist on calling men who murdered and raped and tortured women paedophiles and the like, and hardly any paedophiles are female, by the way, really hardly any, and we say to them, why are you calling these terrible men women? They say, because the court did, because that's what the judge did, and it's what, you know, the various lawyers did. So now that that excuse is going to be gone for them, I'd like to see the media actually referring to dangerous men as men, even when those men don't like it.
100%, and you've just put it very well a second ago, Helen, when I'd never even thought about, you know, the victim sitting there who has been brutalised, raped by a man, only to be told, no, it wasn't a man, it was a woman, which, you know, in many respects kind of almost dilutes the severity of it. It certainly is a, you know, curious, almost dystopian exercise in rewiring someone's memory or their thinking. I mean, it's not just wrong, it's obscenely wrong.
And it makes it hard for them to give evidence. People have to be supported to use what they regard as honest evidence. I mean, we swear to tell the truth when we give evidence. We don't swear to lie because a bad person wants us to lie.
Yeah, spot on. So this is good news, and it comes alongside another little bit of good news. We should mention Maxine Croxall, who's a BBC newsreader. It's not often we give a little doff our cap to the BBC on this programme, but on this occasion, she brilliantly, while reading the autocue, decided that while she saw the words pregnant people, decided to, well, let's say, give it the true word that should have been there. Let's have a look at what Maxine Croxall did.
London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine has released research which says that nearly 600 heat-related deaths are expected in the UK. Malcolm Mystery, who is involved in the research, says that the aged, pregnant people, women, and those with pre-existing health conditions need to take precautions.
You can hear it there, and I mentioned this a second ago, Helen. As she's building up to it, she clearly clocks the line a few words ahead of her and thinks, pregnant people. She read it and then corrected it. I thought that was great, wasn't it?
It really was. And I mean, 100% of all people who have ever been pregnant are women, and we are indeed people. But what the backstory to that is this pretense that men can get pregnant too. It's actually women who identify as men who are getting pregnant, obviously.
Yes.
And it's just erasure of the actual fact that there are two sexes. The two sexes are different. There are things that only women can do and only men can do. And one of those is pregnancy. 100% of everyone who's ever been pregnant is a woman, whether they like it or not.
Yeah, spot on. Obviously, what had happened there, the press release from the organisation that she was talking about had put as do many of these institutions for reasons I've never been able to get to the bottom of, but we sort of know how the journey began. I'd written pregnant people, and then a producer had just lobbed it into the script without necessarily thinking, really, are we still doing this pregnant people thing? I mean, we know the NHS has been there. We've had chest feeding and God knows what else over the years, but she corrected it, and in a curious way. I think that's more than just, I certainly hope it's more than just a sort of a bit of a funny moment on the news. I hope it kind of sets a bit of a precedent for other people in the media to really think about this when they're putting scripts and stories together.
I wouldn't be so sure that it wasn't someone at the BBC who changed the word women to people.
Quite
it could have happened the way you say it, but it could also have happened because some woke producer fixed it.
Yeah, but it would be nice if this did set some kind of standard now.
Absolutely. I mean, especially after we know that Justin on the Today programme was told off for saying that trans women were male. He was told he was meant to say biologically male. There is no way to be male except biologically. And yet that was decided to be, wrong speak on his part. So maybe the BBC is getting there slowly.
Naughty Justin. What's he like? Listen, Helen, great to have you on with us. As ever, Helen Joyce with us on the programme. Helen, of course, is Director of Advocacy at Sex Matters and the author of Trans, Gender Identity and the New Battle for Women's Rights.